Hey, we're going to go live here in just a few seconds with Tamar Stolz. Almost brought like the baseball player back into this. Stolz. We're going to talk about product management, engineering, rethinking, reimagining how you do product development and communicate specifically, and how it adds value to the customer. Be right back. We got about 2 minutes. We'll see you soon. Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Welcome to Never Been Promoted. Hi, I'm Thomas Helfrich, your lovely host who needs a haircut, but my barbershop, for some reason, isn't accepting any appointments for the last 10 days. Not relevant, except to me. So here we go. Hey, welcome today to the show. We're going to be talking about product engineering and rethinking how you do all this kind of crazy stuff when you're building SaaS products. Tamar Stolz. I'm so good at butchering names, it becomes a very good marketing technique. And I just say Tamar Stolz. I just say it over and over until I mess it up so bad. Then they correct it. Then you hear it 7, 8 times, and now you go look it up. See how that works? Tamar Stolz, Stolz. Anyway, she's going to help you talk about how we can align product strategies to business goals, how to communicate that specifically, because there's a big drop sometimes, and even how you do coaching, mentoring in that space. Before we get our lovely guest here on the show, I want to be very clear to anybody new guests. First of all, thanks for joining. I hope it's the first of many that you come to the show. But we have a simple mission, is to help you get better at entrepreneurship, help you get better at cutting ties to a lot of the shit that's holding you back. And there's lots of stuff that holds people back in their life. And if you want to become an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to cut some stuff. And that might be to some fears, excuses, people in your life, maybe the former self that you currently are. You got to do that stuff. Otherwise, you're going to always be kind of held back, and you're not going to get what you want out of it. So do that. One shameless plug, go to youtube.com and subscribe at Never Been Promoted. And if you're on the podcast side of the world, take a moment, 5-star review it. If you don't think it's 5 stars, get a hold of me and on LinkedIn. And you can complain. I'll actually listen, and then we'll see how we can improve it. All right, enough shameless stuff. Tamar, please make your way to the stage. Tamar, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm welcome. And you guys, we were talking off camera. You just got out of the dentist. So you were saying if halfway through the show, your tongue just kind of falls out or half your face falls because of numbing.
That's right.
It's normal. Something just normal. That had nothing to do with it. That was a normal thing that might happen.
Literally 17 minutes ago, I was sitting in the dentist chair getting a really bad cavity filled. Emergency tooth operation. It's okay.
Really?
There's never a dull moment, right?
No, okay. It's emergency because you ignored it the first 6 times they told you, hey, you might
No.
want to
No, because I had work done a few days ago, and I was like in pain afterwards, and like we weren't sure why. And then yesterday I had this like shooting pain. It was so bad. I texted I have his personal cell phone number, and I texted him. I said, you got to get me in. Like, this is crazy. So he said, okay. He said, I'll come in early. We open at 11, 10:15. I was like, I have a podcast at 11. Could you get me out before 11? He's like, we'll get you out. I'm like, okay.
I went for I had a cracked molar the other day, and I'm very conscious of getting upsold by dentists, but specifically they're going to drill this thing out, and I'm going to be like, "You're going to need a root canal." And I'm going to be like, "I can't say no to that, but I don't want." It didn't happen. They were so good, these guys. I even took a picture with him. I said, "Hey, if you screw this up, I'm going to put this on 1 million followers." He did such a good job, but he didn't pay to come on here, so I'm not saying who he is. I'm glad you're feeling well. I'm glad you made it, and I would have definitely have canceled that. I would just, I would have been like, "We're rescheduling this. I'm not going to be in the right state of mind."
No, you know what? I think it's a great segue, I guess, into like my like really who I am. I think, obviously emergencies come up and you gotta here and there. But I do think that there's something to be said about just showing up as like your authentic self. And like these things happen all the time. This is life, right? So like social media wants to portray, fantasy life, and that's fine. But I mean, I think one of the things that I'm very passionate about and something that probably just comes naturally to me is just showing up the way I am and embracing it. And so if I really couldn't talk, then yeah, okay, fine. But like I'm talking a little funny and I don't feel my tongue, but okay.
No, you did.
That's like
go eat stuff you don't like. That's healthy. That's the goal. If you can't have taste, like just go eat kale for a week. Your body will love you for it.
100%.
I wouldn't do that. I tell others to do that. So tell me about you. So let's get in a little bit about what you're doing a little bit. Okay, so start with kind of what you're working on, and we're going to get into your journey of kind of how you realize this and the pivots and all the little things that go with it. But start with what the main problem maybe you're solving or you see that you're trying to solve, and let's start with that, and then back up into your journey story.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the main problem I'm trying to solve. So something I'm super passionate about, and I would say my journey to how I got here is really what shaped and formed the people that I work with, the problems that I'm solving, the work that I'm doing. And so I would say like this, like it's hard. I guess it's hard to speaking on a podcast for entrepreneurs, right? So just making sure that it's relevant for everyone, not just people within the product business space. But I'm hoping that I can speak to the broader audience and that everybody can walk away taking something practical out of it.
Even if it's not a product, it's either a product or service people do. They very rarely, unless you're just talking for a living, or even that's a service of some side. These ideas and principles will still apply with leadership, communication, purpose, right? I mean, it does include anyone who's kind of trying to build something and serve someone.
Okay, cool. So the work that I'm doing is really working to empower product managers to drive strategic alignment and to empower them and to, I don't like to use the word educate because I don't like to educate people who know how to do what they're doing very well, but bring in a new perspective on the importance of strategic alignment with business strategy and product strategy. So working with product managers to make sure that the work that they're doing is directly aligned to the business objective goals, and really just acting as the bridge between business strategy and leadership and the product teams, product managers, product strategists.
What and tell me something. Why, when you're going to how did you discover that to be a problem and a problem we're solving? There's lots of problems when you're going a mile a minute and building the road while you're driving on it. But why specifically this one? Why do you think there's an impact to maybe the down? And what I keep in mind is the customer. Like, how does this really affect the customer?
For sure. Is the glare in my glasses driving you crazy? Because I can take them off.
No.
Okay.
I mean, they're part of the brand. So regardless if you need them ever or not, you have to wear them forever.
100%. But my lights I'm in the process of like reshifting things around here. So I'm not in my natural setup. So
looks good. I think everyone take a vote. Judges.
Glasses on, glasses off.
Judges.
So backing up, why, how is this impacting the customer and how did I come to, I guess, realize this problem? So I would say really starting out my journey in UX design, user experience design. My first job was placed within a product team. I was reporting to a product manager, and my job description was that of a UX designer. And the way that I naturally started to approach the projects that I was working on was more from a business strategy perspective, which I don't know how far back you want me to go in terms of how I got to where I'm at. What's my background?
It's what's relevant, because I think the more relevancy you can show from you, it helps people understand understand the problem in their terms. So I think,
Right.
go whatever you like.
Okay.
Listen, there's no format to the show, really. It's just random.
Okay, super. So let's go back a little bit into, kind of where I'm coming from. I think it'll give a little bit of a better perspective. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My grandparents owned businesses. My dad owned a business. And I always enjoyed being surrounded by and being in the business environment. I'm the oldest in my family, oldest of four. And I love to watch my father kind of just do his business thing. And as I got older, I understood more and learned more about business, learned more about strategy, understood what it means to be a leader within business. And I really had my father as an incredible role model for what that looks like. And I think I really just soaked it all in. Obviously, as I got older, I understood things on a more deeper level. But my father really modeled what it was like to lead a company and to instill the importance of a strong workplace culture, and that's a vital key for success. And so that's kind of like how I grew up. I always, had a more entrepreneurial type of passion. I always knew I wanted to do something within the business space. And I always loved to work with people, problem solve, and use my creative thinking to come up with innovative solutions. So being that I wanted to do something within business, wanted to work with people, loved, solving problems, I also had a skill for technology. But there was no way I was going to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day and do any software development or anything. I really wanted to work with people. And so the long story short is that I wanted to find a career that, would merge both my passion and my skill. And I landed at UX design. So I really enjoyed my first job as a UX designer. I enjoyed the discovery phase, the getting to know our users, empathizing with our users' pain points, really trying to understand them. But what I realized very early on is that I was approaching my work from a business strategy perspective through the lens of the business. So for example, that means I was asking my manager questions like, well, how is the designs that we're doing now going to affect our business objective goals for the coming quarter? And my manager looked at me like I was crazy, because that was totally out of line for my job description as a UX designer. However, I felt that in order for me to feel like a valuable asset to the team, that I was contributing something to the team, but to the company at large, I wanted to make sure that my deliverables were valuable assets to the bigger picture strategy and goals for the company at large. So that's kind of was my introduction, I would say, to this gap between the product strategy, right, which is the space that I was living in, and the questions that I was asking, to the business strategy, the bigger, broader picture leadership team strategy that was being communicated very beautifully to the company, which is not a given. But understanding from company meetings, right, and getting some insights here and there as to what are we doing as a company, what are we trying to accomplish, who are we serving, why are we serving them. The fact that I had that knowledge as a product designer or a UX designer, and I'll use those terms interchangeably because I'm technically certified as both, but I do identify more as a product designer because I did go ahead and get a certification as a product designer, because I felt that it lent itself to a more not holistic, I guess you could say a holistic view, but it gave me the opportunity to work with stakeholders on a more personal level and gain access into the bigger picture strategy.
Let me pull an onion back, the layer of an onion. I don't really like that term because onions smell, and that's why probably a better term for that. We'll think of one. Maybe go inside the avocado and let's scoop out the avocado here. Big round center. When you talked about, I love that your dad is an entrepreneur, and I have a little 9-year-old, right? That that's what she's already. I'm going to be an entrepreneur like you, Dad. I'm thinking maybe the dad of the future who's made tons of money, and but right now he's struggling through it. But she's always asking questions, and I think one of the things you brought up, which is the work culture, and it's something that I know at our companies we do that as well. And the one specifically, you just talk about working somewhere. And I think this is a trigger for a lot of people to have the first calling for entrepreneurship is when, and those listening and maybe not watching, Tamar is not 50 years old. She's on the younger side of career, not like the sunsetting side of like someone like me. But did you find like in that culture, the fact that you were wise enough to say, hey, I think this is an important piece. And then you see this manager shut you down, it sounded like, because that's not your role. But then I'm as an owner who hires people like yourself to go do like some design or, product or experience stuff. That's exactly the question I want someone to ask, because then you can say, hey, listen, I don't recommend this design because the strategy of what we're trying to accomplish is X. And if we do that, that will, and I think, did you feel like dismissed because of age, or is it just culture, or what was the reason why they dismissed it? And maybe follow on to that is, did you still try to defend and say, no, I need to know this because?
Yeah, lots of good questions. So I would say, I was probably at a disadvantage that I was the owner / CEO's daughter. I think that was probably first and foremost my number one disadvantage. I think age for sure played a part, but to be totally transparent, there's no reason people like would have listened to me because I had no experience. True that I was asking good questions, but like I had no experience. The way I approached it was very immature and inexperienced. The way that I communicated, my communication skills were not polished. And looking back, I think the way I came in was more about me being the hero and not being their guide. And so I think that's for sure like the number one mistake that I made looking back, which is that although I had value to add, it was wrapped in a very just immature.
Do you feel like you had to prove yourself?
I'm not sure if it was that I had to prove myself, but I'm naturally such a passionate person. And I wanted so badly to drive that company to success. And we were working on such a key, important project that I saw the problem so big. And I saw that I had the ability to add value to the solution. And I could scream until I was blue in the face, but everyone looked at me like I was crazy.
You're going to have the same problem in your career if you work for people as the name of this podcast. Because you're a smart, intelligent thinker that can take lots of information, discern it down to what the thing is way quicker. I've met with you enough times to know that I see this. It is such a curse in the corporate world to have that, because youth will always work against you. And there are things there's factors of, hey, slow down, here it is, do it right timing. But your mind is never going to be wired that way, I assume. It isn't. It's more of like, no, I think we could take this step to get it done. Now, you'll fail fast, make errors. It's a good, bad problem. Say it that way. It's a good one when you're on your own, but then there's a maturity that happens occasionally. It smacks you in your face. You're like, oh, I cannot believe I just did that for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is you have a tie in the future to cut. That's going to be this double-edged sword that you've been stabbing yourself with, thinking it's been healing you. And at some point you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Let me just stab something else. I'll be quiet now. The point is, I think, if you talk about like where you're trying to influence here, product teams, people who've been in it longer, people that have a perception of what your role should be. What did you learn, I guess, from that experience? And then what did you do about it?
Yeah. So in terms of that specific experience, I think that was the starting point to the eye-opening reality of what so many companies are dealing with on a regular basis, which is this disconnect between product teams and business leadership. And it's very hard because obviously I haven't spoken to every product manager in every company in the world. So everyone's experiencing this differently. And depending on the company's size and depending on the work, I mean, there's so many factors that go into it, right? But I would say, number one, I would say it was a very humbling experience because it helped me stop and take a step back and understand, okay, like, is what I'm saying really providing value, right? Like, what's my goal here? What am I trying to do? My intentions were good, right? Like I knew what I was doing in terms of I wanted to provide value to drive this company to success, period, no matter what that takes. And I think that, just as a side point, I think probably for many of the listeners here and, anyone that's watching or hears, I think everyone wants to feel like they're providing value to the company and that their contributions are, helping the company drive the company towards success. And I think that when we, meaning anyone really working in a company, when we feel that our contributions are not welcome, our opinions are not valued, our voice is not heard, it makes you feel like you're not really needed,
Right.
The work that you're doing, like we just need the work that you're producing. So just keep producing it. Like I kind of felt like we don't need your business strategy talk. You go back to your Figma file. Figma is the design tool that many designers use. Go back to your software, and just stay put.
Go back to your playpen and go play with little pretty things. And
right. Exactly.
People want to be a cog in the wheel of the machine. I get that. Well, so let me advance. So I still listen. You had conflict, you got it, and you've started now consulting. I think is probably the right word. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that. But on this problem of explaining customer value for the actions of what product teams and how they communicate it between product owner, if you will, and development team. So pivot me to kind of like what you're doing today, because you've left. So take me through the exit of what you did and what you started, and then let's get into like. Let's learn something from what you're doing today.
Yes. So the long story short is that my dad's company was acquired by Experian. So suddenly an 150 employee company of like one big family became, we were part of Experian, which is like 20,000 plus employees. So very different,
Just be clear. We know when we go to dinner, your dad's buying. Like there's no question about it. Like he's got the wallet that can beat people up now. Not everybody, but he can beat a lot of people up with his wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to my dad.
I had to do it. I mean, that's a huge company to acquire 150 per. Awesome, good for him. You're like, now how do I do that? I'll be quiet because I'm doing what I do on the podcast.
It's great. So, I was very happy for him, and it was great. But that was not the workplace environment that I was looking for, and so I ended up leaving Experian. We all transitioned into Experian, and then I ended up leaving Experian, going to a different company because I knew that ultimately, obviously the experience that I just shared about, feeling like I was hitting a brick wall, not being able to provide the value I knew that I could, happened multiple times. And so I knew that I wanted to be on my own, but I also knew that I was too young in my career to just do that. And so I wanted to have more experience with team building, learning how to collaborate, learning how to communicate, just learning what it means to be in, a business and work with other people. And so I joined another company, Vail, and it was an incredible experience, fantastic people, amazing workplace culture. And I really learned a tremendous amount. The reason I ended up leaving a few months ago was really just because life circumstances. I have 2 delicious children who need their mommy at home, and I really wanted to be a mommy first. And so I went off on my own, launched my own business. And it's definitely the greatest thing I've ever done because it's a freedom that allows me to do what I know I'm good at, and I know that I can provide value, an area that I can provide value in, that I'm confident in, but also that I understand that there's so much that I don't know and that I can learn from so many people just in any experience, right? So really, I would say in terms of the work that I'm doing and what people can take away from listening is the importance of strategic alignment. And it's funny because I'm a visual learner, visual person. I am not a what's the word? I don't get no associate links. I'm not no advertising here. This just happens to be one of my favorite books. It's called Aligned. And when people ask me, like, what do you do? Anyone who knows this book, that is what I do. I empower really as much as it's people and product, just because that is my expertise and that is what I've been working in the past couple of years in corporate. It's really just understanding that the strategic alignment, right, between business and product. What does that mean? If a product team sits down at the beginning of the year and they create a roadmap, too often we treat this roadmap as this sacred document that cannot be touched and cannot be reevaluated. And what happens is if the business strategy shifts and something changes or there's a pivot, that product roadmap needs to be tweaked because some of the things on there are no longer applicable. And so what I've seen is that the product teams are executing on projects and making changes and doing feature prioritizations on things that are really not going to drive success for the company's new strategy. And
How
so
do they decide that? So I've been a product owner, right? Like I'm a years in another former life, certified Scrum product owner. Back when it was developed, I was like, I feel old now. Like the guy who actually came up with Scrum, I actually took his class directly with him. But anyway, dated. Here it is. But it was my fault if they were doing things out of context to the customer. So is it a management problem, or is it a laissez-faire management problem? I should say it that way, or is it just what causes that? Because I feel like the systems should be in place to drive that better.
It's a really good question. And to be totally transparent, I don't have an answer because I think that there is no one size fits all. And I think that that's a big problem that I'm seeing now all over the place, really, but just even on LinkedIn, is that there's this like trend of, this one size fits all like template or idea or concept. And I think that it's for sure a direct result of our generation as being an we're instant gratification generation. We want the answers, we want them fast, and we want them to be easy to implement. And so
we want everything. We want our leads immediately. I need to be a millionaire next month. All that.
It sounds great.
It sounds awesome. I'm sure hiring people with that mindset's fantastic as well.
Right. Ooh. I mean, it's amazing. Like you go onto LinkedIn and you read like the top post in my feed is like, become, how I went from 0 to 1 billion in my bank in just 2 months. I mean, this is incredible.
Is that rupees, or what was the currency? My next question. But anyway, sorry, I'm doing it again.
What's the secret sauce, right? So, it's funny. Nowadays, when I look and I see people, it's like, what was the secret sauce to? Like when I sat down and I was starting my first job, my father sat me down and said, like, you want to know what's the secret sauce? Like, my one piece of advice to you is the inseparable link between your personal values and your business ethics. Like, you be yourself, you be your genuine, authentic self, and that is how you're going to be successful, period. Because there's just no other way. That's how he led his business. That's how I lead. Like, there's no such thing as like me in business and me is me across the board. And so, I don't think there's just no one size fits all. And as much as our as a generation, we wish and we want, there to be a quick and easy answer to that. I think it's a great question. I think there are just too many factors. Different clients that I've worked with and different companies I've worked for over the years, there are too many factors really to give a quick answer to the very good question that you asked. I would say, depending on the hierarchy and the structure of the organization, so many times, I have found that designers or product team members approach leadership teams or business strategists from their perspective. And so when they sit down and have a conversation with the leadership team and they're talking, about different design methodologies and design principles and all the things that we as designers know that are critical to the work that we do, it doesn't mean a thing to business people. They have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I think that I definitely had a strategic advantage of understanding business strategy and understanding how to talk to leadership in a way that's meaningful for them. So if you sit down with a CEO and you say, look, the products that we're working on right now, right? Like we haven't met our business, quarterly KPIs for the past 2 quarters, right? If we're looking at the ROI on X, Y, and Z, but we're looking at the product features that we've prioritized in our backlog for the coming quarter, there is a disconnect. And suddenly the CEO looks at you and it's like, 1 second, like she's onto something. She has like, this is a good point. So I think probably, and again, I'm not here to say people are making mistakes and I'm not here to, I think that most of the time people mean well and people are just trying to do their job to the best that they can. But I do think that to anyone that's listening, that's within the product space or within the design space, to understand that what you're saying is important and your design methodologies and your, the reasons behind what you're doing and why you're doing it are important, but you have to approach leadership from their perspective and to explain things to them in terms and in language and terminology that like jargon that they understand.
When does someone, so I guess if someone brought you in to the team, right? Which role do you help? Like who is it you're directly going to help as a consultant? I know you help the team, but usually there's one person that you end up kind of
supporting,
raising up. And I guess my follow on with that, which will be, well, actually, I'll ask that first. I don't want to presume who it is, but so who do you help on the team? Like, how do they leverage your knowledge and your experience in this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Depending on the size of the company, it's either going to be the product manager, director of product, or the CEO.
Yeah, that would definitely matter on the size of the company.
Exactly. Or
the
the
CEO is the product manager, effectively. So it's the person who owns the product, so to speak.
Exactly. Oftentimes the CTO is doing the job of that product person also. I think ultimately, like as a director of product or product manager, the things that I'm talking about are usually within the job description. But I do think that there is a piece to it that just somehow gets lost.
Well, do you find that what you do though can make someone feel inferior or not threaten their job, but make it be like, well, if I hire you, that's part of my role, and it makes me look like incompetent or something. Like how do you get around? Except because when you have businesses and services, and this is maybe a message to anyone out there who has a company, be aware of what your role does to the person you're working with and the perception of the overall company. In the CEO example, no issue because they run it. In the VP or the director of, unless someone can assign blame downstream for why you're there. So how do you navigate that? Because that's a real problem when you get to get hired, right? Is that people are like,
oh, absolutely,
if I hire you.
Absolutely. Oh, and just to add on to that, I mean, I come in and I'm working with the product manager and they're sitting there like nodding their heads like, yes, 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 this is totally a problem that I'm dealing with. But their job is at stake if they decide to raise their voice. So they want to lay low because they don't want to, they're afraid of being laid off. I mean, there's so many things, right? Which is why I really like to
wait. So you're saying if you're the messenger that gets shot with the arrow after the news is delivered, and so but at the same time that tells me that's a horrible culture spot to be in where they can't raise their opinion or voice on something. And so once what I'm thinking from just a entrepreneurial perspective is your business model and where and how you sell this and who really benefits without those roadblocks, because those are roadblocks to success for you, which means it's hard for you to resell into that group if you can't even get to if you know what I mean. So when you're thinking through your business model, what are you doing about kind of that, or how you position your marketing? So you work with that CEO who's like, man, can you run with this? Because I don't want to hire someone full time, and I think once it's ran, I can get rid of you, basically. But anyway. So how are you working from an entrepreneurial standpoint through the marketing and positioning?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So actually, most of the work that I end up doing is workshop design and facilitation. So usually when a company is requesting some sort of redesign for their product, it's usually an indication of a deeper organizational problem. And so when I come in and I, start talking, let's say with product, and I'm listening to why they want to add in this new fancy feature or why they want to implement AI, right? Because so many companies are just scrambling to figure out how they can maximize some sort of AI in their application so they can check that box. And when I listen to the reasoning behind why they want to make these fancy, flashy UI changes, usually it's an indication that there's a deeper issue. And so what I end up usually doing is running a workshop that is centered around strategic alignment and the importance of teamwork and collaboration. So
you're doing it in workshop fashion and such. Is the idea behind that? And so I think if I come back because as people listen to this, they're like, well, how would I set my business up? Somebody with 20 years of consulting, if you can get the workshop, it usually leads to an assessment, or it can from a consulting side, and which could lead to some kind of ongoing work. Mm-hmm. Is that I assume your plan as well? Is like, hey, you do the workshops and it's like land, and then let's see if we can put a flag here and get my name on the vendor list and go, or what's your kind of strategy with using the workshop for your own business?
Yeah. So it's funny because when I was working at my dad's company, CIC Plus, I was the first UX designer in the company. And so once I realized that my communication needed some help, I needed to figure out a way to, I was implementing so many things because there was nothing that existed, right? So I was like drinking from a fire hose, taking course after course and certification, so many things. And so, but I was thirsty for execution, but I didn't know how to properly communicate it. So I ended up taking a course with AJ and Smart called Workshop or Master. And I got certified as a workshop facilitator. And it was the greatest thing I ever did, because I realized that workshops are brilliant, because I was having meeting after meeting, right? Trying to like explain what I was doing, why I was doing it, why I thought we should do it, why I was going to provide value to the team. And the result of every single meeting was just scheduling another meeting. And when I started to run workshops, and the result was an actionable next step to the problem that we were trying to solve, everyone like left the workshop feeling empowered, like, wow, okay, like if we make this small change, there's a serious impact to be had for our team and for the business. And so like it was kind of like a no-brainer. And I did this at Vail also in terms of just the workshop facilitation piece. The ROI, I mean, you get multiple representatives from different departments within the company to sit down in a room, even if it's for 2 hours, right? I've had people tell me, oh, there's no way we're doing workshops. So start small. So start just within your team. You come into a collaborative workshop, you all approach the problem together, you're solving it together, and then you leave with an actionable next step. Yeah, it's empowering. It's really a magical experience for people who haven't experienced it. So I would say like this, I just, tying things back to the inseparable link, right, between who I am in terms of my personal values and my business ethics and just who I am as a person. I am not, when I was trying to figure out like what to call myself, the word consultant just did not click with me. I was like, I'm not a consultant. Why? Because when I heard the word consultant, I don't know why. This is my own like silliness, but it felt a little bit like cold, in the sense that like I was going to come in, help, whatever the situation was, and then leave. And what I really want, what I want, my dream is to really build personal, like real relationships with the companies that I work with, because my very like genuine self won't go to sleep at night if I don't feel like I set my clients up for success. Like my clients really truly become like a part of like who I am and the work that I'm doing. And so because I care so deeply about like who it is that I'm helping, I really, the consultant like title I was having a hard time with, but I also know that people don't think that way. And so when people ask me what I do say consulting, because I am not either a coach either. It's kind of these titles.
I will, I'll put my, what I do when I coach people through stuff as like, this is early stage stuff that you kind of keep revisiting. I even sent this to you on LinkedIn. It says, I would tell you, your headline should only, and I don't recommend this for a lot of people, but you should have only one thing that's going to show up on mobile, desktop. Whenever people click on your profile, it's going to say underneath your name, the unstoppable product pioneer. And that's it. And they're gonna be like, okay. And then everything's around product and pioneering. And if you do that, you can say, what am I? I go, I'm the unstoppable product pioneer. And people are like, well, what is that? And you're like, I help you make kick-ass products. And like, that's it. Like, we cut through all the bullshit, all the noise. I help you make unstoppable products. If you take that more branding approach personally, you don't have to call yourself anything except that. And I'm not saying you need a cut tie, but you got to come something that's going to be like, all right, I get that. All right, cool.
Well, I'm actually, so many people have asked me if I had a YouTube channel. So I started a YouTube channel, and then someone reached out and said, oh, can I be a guest on the channel? And I said, a guest for what? And they were like, oh, is it a podcast or a channel? I said, I mean, it's a channel.
Wait, it's a podcast and a channel. I will tell you, when you do it that way, very difficult. You need both. It's a lot of work. I'm going to throw it out there, people. I'm blown away by how much work I need to do yet on our channel that is really this podcast right now.
Right. So I said, okay, a podcast. So then I said, okay, let me like gauge my network and see like would people be interested in a podcast that was, centered around strategic alignment with business and product strategy. I within 48 hours, I had a list of like 30 something people.
I will tell you, I can give you a business model of how to leverage that, monetize it so you can grow your channel faster. I can give you a blueprint if you'd like to have it.
Okay. Thank you.
Just conscious of time here. I want to look to the future a little bit. So, okay. So just to kind of recap, you got to have an entrepreneurial background. You're raised in it. You're born in it. The itch is there. You went out and worked and you got in the real corporate world without without the air cover. Let's say it that way, from, where you got acquired your dad's company, but then you're like, oh, this sucks basically. But you understand that need for that step of product strategy and alignment to how the user is going to experience it. And I think that's great that you have a passion for it. I love that space, and it's an endless problem. What a great business model, right? Because ever, forever. And if you can get the branding right around yourself, people will bring you in for this. And it's very clear, hey, this is when you bring me in so you can be more effective downstream. It's like a very simple ROI metric. I love where you're at with this. You just got to go land a few and you're going to go, it's going to be crazy. If you look to the future now, though, oh, by the way, last thing, I want to throw this out there. If you guys, she ran right over this. She has 2 delicious kids, which implies she's tried them. And but you get to be like your dad now. The parts, I'm sure you looked up to your dad and were like, I love my dad talking to me about this. It's like these nostalgic moments. You are now that for your children. I'm not sure how old they are, but they're still edible, apparently. And so they're not teenagers for sure. But how old they are, you start reading them like business books because they don't care what you're reading. They're just like, here's the first 100 entrepreneurial words you should know. I love that. And you're about to repeat that, which you maybe are realizing that, but you're in the weeds. 10 years from now, you're going to be super happy you're there. So anyway, I love that. You're like your journey ahead. Let's look to the future now, though. Let's look to what's kind of a trend. And you focus a lot on SaaS products, to be very clear. So software as a service, for those who don't know. What's something that's maybe a threat to your business? Or conversely, you're like, hey, I think because of whatever, AI, mine is even more needed. What's a trend or a future topic that you're passionate about and wanted to talk about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you throw out AI. People ask me now all the time, oh, so what do you think about AI? It's funny. I don't approach it any differently. Here goes my tongue. I don't approach it any differently than I approach any technology. And the simple way that I approach it is it's a tool. Is it going to replace? I mean, just Google AI. Is it going to replace? Is it going to take over? Is it? At the end of the day, whether it is, whether it isn't, depending on the industry, depending on so many different factors, for me, it's here and it's here to stay. Okay. So we need to embrace it in a way that feels meaningful to each person has to embrace it in a way that feels right and meaningful to them. So, I think AI, I approach it as a tool to help me do the work that I do better and to help me. It's funny. So I look at AI and I say, is it authentic to AI? Okay. So that's not to say that I don't use ChatGPT to look over something and to polish something that I've done 100%. I will tell you that for me, I write the way that I talk. I couldn't write a formal letter if you paid me. So for me to plug into ChatGPT, it's kind of silly because like people know the way that I write. It's the way that I talk. So like I'm not leveraging it, but I totally have used it and I totally use AI to help enhance. If it's enhancing and it's a tool to help you do what you know how to do, but better, great. If it's not, and you're using it to replace or to take over or to, misusing it, then fine. Then I hear it to be a threat. So, I think that, the world it's a bit of a scary time. I think that people are scared for their jobs. I think people are scared for, what's going to be in the next couple months. We have an election. There's a lot going on in the world. And I think that at the end of the day, we can spend a lot of time worrying and feeling anxious about what's going to be and what's the current state and looking. I think probably the advice that I give to myself is to just take each day as it comes, to take it day by day. That's not to say that you should not have a strategy and that you should not have a roadmap, but that is to say, and this is what I tell people all the time about roadmaps, right? Not treating them as sacred documents, but treating them as, what did I tell someone the other day? I said, I have to remember and I'll put it in the comments, but it was something about treating a roadmap as like an adaptable document, right? It's an adaptable guide that we revisit all the time. I think it's important for people to, of course, have, a vision into where it is that they're going, a goal, shoot for the moon, definitely think big. I think big for sure. But also take each day as it comes, like step by step by step. Things are evolving and rapidly changing faster than we can say boo. So I think it's important to, no matter what the trend is in your industry, and no matter, for those of you that are listening and are feeling threatened by AI and are feeling like something else is going to come that's going to, challenge that, and something else is going to come. There's always going to be something. So if we approach it and embrace it, I would say embrace it in a way that feels meaningful to you and approach it through a curiosity perspective. Like, oh, this is a cool tool. Like, how could I use it to become better? How could I use it to do the work that I'm doing and provide more value to my clients? how could I, gain insights from it, right? Like
Right.
approach it from a more curious perspective. I think that no matter what the trend is, and no matter what it is that you're dealing with, no matter what it is that you're doing, I think that'll help, reframe things in a more positive.
I think with AI specifically in your space, in the consulting type space, though, you are the unstoppable product pioneer. We're going to get you there. But that is still in the consulting advisory space. AI should be a tool that will be leveraged to be able to look at a product, upload it, so to speak, or distribute it to an AI and have it be able to say, here's where you could have potential user experiences based on some kind of strategy or input you've given into it of business goal. And I think you still need someone to interpret that and what to go do next, and AI can help with that. But and there's specific nuance, but it should be used because it is such a wealth of knowledge when used correctly. And I think people should realize that that's going to affect like everything from a productivity standpoint if used correctly. So I love that you bring that up, because I think don't fear it. Take it a day at a time as it comes in, and leverage these tools correctly with a. But you also mentioned a human kind of, or you indicated a human-led approach, is that these things are there to help you do that. So I agree with that. You passed the test, you win. Have you ever been promoted, by the way?
I don't think so.
Cool. You can join the club. Everyone else can fog up the windows looking at us all. Never been promoted, hanging out. I don't drink anymore, but you guys can all drink for me. It's fine. I don't judge. Have a good time with it. Listen, shameless plug time for you. If you're listening, don't do it. She's going to tell you how to get a hold of her. Who should get a hold of you, and how do they do that?
Yeah. Well, I really do work with product teams in the SaaS industry. That is really my niche. But obviously, no matter where you are, please reach out. I would love to say hello, introduce yourself. And to get a hold of me, you can go to my LinkedIn. You can go to my YouTube channel and podcast. Keep your ears and eyes open. This podcast is coming because I have 32 people who have agreed, and a list of so many people. Oh my goodness, this podcast does not exist, but yet there are a lot of guests already. So it's very exciting. So stay tuned for a very exciting podcast called The Unstoppable Product Pioneer. And my email, Tamar, TamarStolz @uxpressed, uxpressed.com. That's UX Breast, UXpress, what's going on? Let's work out a solution together. Okay. And yeah, anyone reach out, say hello, but really,
I'm going to narrow it. I'm going to help you in the marketing. If you're a product manager, I'm offering 30 minutes of her time for free.
Oh, hey, I have a Calendly link. Go grab time on my calendar.
Oh, yeah, listen, go grab 30 minutes. I know you have a free link. So I'm helping. So listen, we're going to work through her pitch, but that's
no, I don't have a free link anymore. Paid link. Paid Calendly account.
Because you're on this podcast, you get 15 minutes for free. I'm negotiating for your audience here. Fine. Go pair. I would get someone 15 minutes. 15 minutes to say, hey.
I have an hour slot. What are you talking about?
Oh, make it 15. That's way too long. Paid hour for sure. Paid 100%. Can't disagree. 15 minutes to see if they're psycho or not. Free. I think that's good. Yeah. Unless you get a bunch of 15-minute weirdos, but it's a funnel at that point. Do you have a video or anything like that? Like an introductory video? Do you have any videos on just explaining like what we just went through today? Do you have a free digital?
I mean, I'm just starting. I mean, I have a YouTube channel with a few videos, but I mean,
her answer is actually yes, because by the time this airs and people see it, it'll be in the link. It's gonna be I'm putting her on the hook for that too. So we're gonna make a video.
Accountability. That's another thing.
You see what I'm doing? Like, I don't have any of this shit. I'm like, yeah, you do. Because I'm putting it out there that you have it. So if you don't, you look bad now, not me.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Tamar, thank you so much, Bobby. This is great. If you are, but I think you really do want to focus on companies like that are growing, that have a little budget for someone to help them with the product design efforts. So you're not, because there's a lot, I think what happens, and let me just kind of restate the problem. I think what happens sometimes is that people build products and services and they know how to do that really well. They miss the front end user interactions. Are they guess? And if you feel like that's not your core capability, this is where you come in, because this is yours. And some might be okay at it, but if you really want to make it work, you work with someone like you. And then that's the point, is that you get it aligned to strategy and you keep it on track. And I think that's super important, because it's so easy to get it off track, because if it's not a core capability of yourself. So this is why I would work with you if I had a product,
right. or really just acting as a bridge between the product and business strategy, and helping the business understand from a business perspective why a customer-centric model is so valuable for them, and the ROI and all their, stuff.
I don't know how to pronounce your name, Tasnova Nushin. Thanks for the great podcast thing on Facebook there.
Awesome.
I haven't been on Facebook for years. Like, I'm on there, but I'm not on there, and I've been on there more. It's kind of fun. It's a giant time suck. All right. Thank you so much, Tamar, for coming on. I'm gonna put you in the periwinkle room. No snacks, nothing cool back there except just your own thoughts.
I can't eat anything. I'm great. Thank you.
Oh, that's
Thanks for having me.
Stop eating candy. Oh, he did not. I'll talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for everyone who made it this part and interacting with us online here and enjoying the podcast. Refer a friend. Say, this guy looks amazing with his blue tie, and he has on interesting guests as well. Either one of those orders of reasons works. If you knew me personally, you would know how funny I am. Really, I am so funny. My kids tell me otherwise, and everyone else in my life, but I disagree. That's how it works. Hey, we're here to help you cut ties. We're here to help you launch to become an unleashed entrepreneur. Help you get better at life too, and that's the whole mission and point of Never Been Promoted. We got this funky music. I'll put on real quick. Hold on. Feel that? That's how we're gonna exit. That's how we're gonna go. Get out there. Unleash your entrepreneur. Thanks for listening.